Hey there, I'm Eric Hunley and welcome to the channel. On this channel, I love to have experts talking about everything from body language to statement analysis to interrogation, maybe a little true crime, maybe a little psychology, but things that make people tick. And one of these experts is Greg Hartley of the Behavior Panel, who's here with me today. How are you doing, Greg?
Good, Eric. I'm always funny about calling myself an expert in anything, just because of the way I think of expertise. But thanks. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, I will lay the label upon you with your 10 plus books and experience at Sears School. And I'm going directly to this experience because I've covered the Amber Heard interview ad nauseum. Well, I'm at 5 videos covering it because the way they dripped it out, like a death of 1,000 herds, as I keep saying. But I feel like one person overlooked in this, who's even more interesting than Amber Heard and her reactions, is Savannah Guthrie.
Yeah, let's cover some of her interview technique because I think she did a good job. And what I always say is I care as much about the why as I do about the body language when we're talking about this stuff. And often what we fall short on is they ask the wrong questions. They don't ask a question. They leave too much space. They don't leave enough space. So yeah, this would be a good one to cover.
You're here. Some people might ask, why? Are you brave? Are you reckless? Are you vindictive? Why did you want to do an interview?
The one thing I can tell you is, one thing I'm not is vindictive.
This is the question. Think about when you're dealing with a child. What does a child ask you? The first thing they learn to ask is why. Not because they're brilliant, but because it is the underlying everything to everything that people do, because it's the simplest question to ask and the most profound. You can't escape it. You can't say yes or no. It's not a leading question. It's not a compound question. It's a simple question that forces you to dig into how you think. And if you look, what she's caused to happen here is Amber Heard is down to the right now in emotional eye accessing. You know, I'm an eye accessing guy. She's down and to her right in emotional eye accessing as she tries to answer the question. So it's working. Right off the bat, you get her started. I'd also add, in addition to that, that overly engaged face and that big toothy smile, while it might not be meant to be aggressive, will come across as very aggressive by the end of this interview because she, at very pointed times, will smile with a big toothy smile and make hard eye contact. And there's no running away from her. It's a beautiful thing.
I was watching somebody who pointed this out, and I thought it was really relevant and wanted to get your thoughts. She asked a 3-part question.
Oh, yeah. Well, she gave her options. There's a difference between a 3-part question and giving her options. What you're doing is you're framing what you or other people are asking. You're not asking her truly why. You're giving her options, and then she runs down that path. And I have the same question. What the hell were you thinking coming on the show? There's no value you could ever get out of this, Amber Heard, in my opinion.
There's no part of me that sees any, this would be a really lousy way to get vengeance.
That I thought was interesting because she wasn't asked about vengeance.
Well, our brains, what happened in our brains is association, fuzzy logic, whatever you want to call it. Vengeance, vindictive may mean the same things to her. The way your brain operates is especially under high duress. So I wouldn't read too much into that. I would just say, look, that might be the way she associates vindictiveness and vengeance. I'm always cautious with word choice because education plays into that. Who they travel with today plays into that.
Yeah, I think that's somewhere that I'm going to say you depart from statement analysis slightly because tense shifting is really important in statement or commonly used in statement analysis.
Yeah, if there's a baseline, if the baseline is if a person's always conjugating, if a person's always in the right tense and suddenly changes, yes, it means something. Talking about literacy and how a person was educated and all that, it can play into. So I don't know enough to say. Just it's one of the things I want you to think about when you hear people responding with a lateral word. Though it can mean a schism in thought, but it can also mean associated thought.
Statement analysis can be compared to body language in the regard of one thing by itself doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's when you get the whole cluster together. So I think it's a similar outcome.
For some people, they just were frankly disgusted by the whole thing and don't have much sympathy for either one of you. Can you understand that?
Absolutely.
Now, this one I thought was really slick because she was kind of saying, I'm half with you. It's both of you. spreading or giving an opportunity to spread the blame, or am I wrong on that being a technique?
Well, yes, that what you do is that's blame sharing. Anytime you can make a person feel more comfortable to share the details, then they'll say, yeah, I played my part. And there's also contempt in Savannah's face when she's saying that. Look at that drawn left side of her mouth. So she's projecting what the world thinks and saying, you're spoiled brats, and waiting for her to respond to it. Now, how much of that is intentional projection versus what she's thinking is a different question. Remember, elicitation techniques are about getting information without hardcore asking, like what is, who are, where did. There are other tools. And a lot of people use them instinctively without realizing it. Some of the best information elicitors I've ever met were never trained. They just used, well, it's raining outside and my shoes are there. They're asking you to do something without asking you to do something.
But here's the thing about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't protect lies that amount to defamation. And that was the issue in the case.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that was her continuing, because the further one, she was saying, I lost my ability to free speech. And Savannah, and that's what I want to keep going to, because Savannah has no truck with her. And she's good at keeping her on point, but not being overly aggressive.
But she was pointing at her and poking. I mean, that's pretty aggressive body language. Here's the thing. First Amendment protects your right to free speech. Mm-hmm. But she is very aggressive. Look at that finger. That's pretty powerful. And remember, behind her is all of NBC, which represents culture to Amber Heard, or she wouldn't have come here. So her pointing her finger and doing that, if I do that to you watching, how does it feel? Much less when you're sitting in the room with a person and she's smiling and doing that. So it's powerful.
You've said many times you just wanted to go on with your life. When you wrote the op-ed, it raised all of this again. Why did you do that if you wanted to just go on and put this past you?
Because the op-ed wasn't about my relationship with Johnny.
But it alluded to him. It was unmistakable.
What the op-ed was about.
Yeah, she delineates, I'm not letting you wiggle this way, and then puts her in a box and lets her answer the question, gives her some silent time so she can actually respond. Silence is a powerful tool in an interrogation, in an interview. Most job interviews I've ever been to, they're not smart enough to let you have time to run out of prepared answers. And if you are interviewing somebody tomorrow for a job and you let them run out of their prepared answer, you'll get more information than you can bargain for. It's just a powerful tool. And she does a good job of leaving her that space.
Did you worry? Gosh, I'd love to be a person weighing in on these cultural issues, but that's going to stir this all up again.
That's a great question.
Of course it is. It's why you swallowed twice.
Yeah. This is, and I look at Savannah, this calm, like, she's almost like a conductor right now. Are you worried? Yeah, because she's got her stirred up, and I feel like she's stirring her up.
Did you watch? She purses her lips at the end of some of these really tough questions in disapproval as she says it. And, look, we all are children of a mother somewhere. And everybody's mother at one point went and pursed their lips to disapprove of something we did at some point.
Mm.
When you wrote this op-ed, it was the height of Me Too. Legions of powerful men being canceled, losing their jobs. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. It wasn't about.
Here's an interesting one, because she telegraphs the answer she wants to. Did you want that for Johnny Depp?
Mm.
Now, that's not my favorite question she asked. Of course, the answer is no. This may be a misstep in questioning. I would say, what were you after? Might even use an elicitation technique to say, you realize a provocative statement. You realize the impact you had on Johnny Depp's career was catastrophic. Now she has a choice. She can sit there and let that be the last thing I said about her article, or she can respond. When she responds, it opens the door to the next question. She may say, what do you mean? No, I didn't. Whatever it is, it forces her out of her position of comfort, which she isn't in, and into a position where she has to respond.
Interesting point. I never thought of that.
If that makes sense to you.
Now, part of the issue is this is edited together.
Sure. And it's tough.
And I can tell you conclusively that they have already done a stealth edit between all the preview clips and the final interview that was released on Friday.
That's right.
And that was the point when Amber Heard said that these victims don't have the resources like you and I, Savannah. that was a very significant statement because she did not place herself with the victims. She actually separated herself by putting herself with Savannah and having resources.
Interesting.
The fact that they parsed it out very sneakily and did a Franken edit makes me think that, okay, there's something more devious going on here.
I'll give you my opinion of Amber Heard in this interview. And I forget all the rest, whether she's hiding something there, whether it never happened or whatever. She starts to make it about us. She starts to try to call out the mob. And then she uses words truth to power. I spoke my truth and my truth to power. Well, she's putting herself on level with Gandhi and with Tutu and with Mandela and with folks like that. But what I got from her with all of her body language and her speech patterns and her shift to this higher language and prepared stuff that's out of her normal diction was, I came here to protect you. I need the mob to help me. And I threw myself against a wall. I ran in front of the train. That's what I heard.
Sure. Well, and that's how she is representing him from what we see. My issue is that just that cut right there proves the whole thing can't be trusted.
Matter of fact, when we did our wrap on this show, this specific one you're talking about, I said, look, this is so edited. I'm going to tell you that we're working off clips, and there could be context we can't see. Why a person's ventilating, hyperventilating or doing something could be because of something that happened that's missing. I can't tell that.
The Depp team argued that you were the abuser, that you instigated physical violence. Did you?
I never had to instigate it. I responded to it. When you're living in violence and it becomes normal, as I testified to, you have to adapt. You adopt strategies to cope with it. If it meant, as I testified to, if it meant the difference between a broken nose or a sore cheek, I would do it.
She did two things there. So she did the provocative statement, but then she said, did you? She asked a question. She could have left it either way. It works out fine. She got a response. She got a long, drawn-out response because she's hitting a point where you can't sit and quietly say no. Now, could I or you? Probably. But can Amber Heard? No. When they don't go to a short statement, I want to know why. And everything they say leaves words for you to trace as well. For example, she says in here, I didn't have to instigate it.
She didn't have to. It was fun. She could do it.
Are we reading in? Possibly. But the chance that she's covering up the fact that she never said he hit me first. She didn't say that. She said, I never had to instigate physical violence.
Well, the thing is that she never answers, rarely, because it stands out when she does.
Agreed.
She doesn't say yes or no.
And you lose trust. Look, if you've got people sitting over there and I say, did you kill this person? You say, no. Then you go, anything else you want to add? No, I didn't kill her. What else would I add, in effect? But if you say, did you kill her? And you go, well, that afternoon I was having Shoney's. Not there is one exist anymore. I was having Shoney's, or I was having this, or I was having that, and I didn't get home until 4:30. Okay, just answer the question. That's how you get people like this.
And in the defense of Savannah, though, I kind of support what she's doing here, because I feel like I did it with Carol Baskin in the sense that I'm not there to challenge her. I'm there to just sit back and learn whatever she has to say.
Well, she does challenge her quite a few times. Here she doesn't. That's what I'm saying. She's not an interrogator. She does challenge her at other times and very effectively. This just happens to be a place where she lets her ramble a little. But all I want you watching to know is that's filled with what we in my business would call a source lead. I did not need to instigate. Well, hold on a minute. What does that mean? And I want to uncover what that means because it's not English that I understand. Maybe it's loaded with meaning to her. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's simply her way of covering something up. Or maybe she feels it's the way she justified the violence. Maybe he hit her first every time. But until you ask that question, that's uncertainty, and uncertainty is not the friend of intelligence. So if that makes sense to you.
What about the witnesses who said they have seen you instigate physical violence? Did they all come in and lie in court?
I'm, less interested in sitting here, relitigating it with you. I am not here to call any of his witnesses.
There we go. And that's, see, I feel like she was giving her some rope and then slapped her This is the second half of that exact sequence.
So I say all lies fall into four categories. My categorization, they're lies of omission. You leave out information. I went to the store and then came home. Forget that I stole something. Lies of commission, where I make up something. Lies of embellishment, and lies of transference. Well, the easiest ones to break are the omission, where I go backward and forward pass. The commission, because you don't have enough details. The hard ones are transference or embellishment. And the way you typically break those is by making it a team sport and forcing the person to throw other people under the bus with them. And then they'll be like, well, wait a minute, I better be careful. She just did that in the reverse order. She said, are all these other people lying, or are you lying?
Well, it makes me think of cops, and I don't know if it's the exact same thing, but the whole, well, what would you say if somebody said they saw you at the gas station at 3:00?
Yeah, kind of a bait. But this one is even more powerful than that. This is saying, what about all those people who did? This is a defined group of people that she has to call liars right here on TV. And guess what? How did she get here on TV? Defamation. It's the reason she's here now. So she's very keenly aware that cost $8.3 million.
Yep.
There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. And as I testified on the stand, what you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that says, he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight.
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did.
But you're just telling me today, I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying...
I love that she pulled out the transcripts. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
that's brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Well, and I think that's her entire interview process has been that. Look, I'm going to start this conversation openly by saying, why would you come here and do this? Then I'm going to put you on the griddle about hard topics and force you to answer. That's pretty aggressive reporting. A lot of people we see would not do this, and she's not playing. I said, by the end of this, when people watch our show, they're like, I don't want to ever meet Greg in an interrogation room. This is pretty harsh. This is pretty harsh.
He says he never hit you. Never. Is that a lie?
Yes, it is.
He says he's never struck any woman. His lawyers argued at trial. None of his other prior relationships, not one woman has come forward and said he physically hit them. You were the only one.
Look what happened to me when I came forward. Would you?
That's a great place for this one. So here, what she does is the first part of the question, she actually responds to in a way that I would expect a person to. Yes, it is. Is that a lie? Yes, it is. That's good. That's perfect. But then she goes on and she goes to wrap herself in martyrdom and all of that. What Savannah does here well, and whether it's, because I've not watched Savannah Guthrie enough to tell you if it's her baseline, but that contempt in the left side of her face and then that smile and then that lockdown eye contact and the driving her head as she's making her point, all those, that's browbeating, by the way. If today someone older than you is standing talking to you and they're talking over their glasses, she didn't have glasses on, but if you do that, that's browbeating. And it's sending your message very clearly. You're illustrating using the brow. It depends on how it's perceived and where you're at and how you're positioned. She's got the position of authority. She's making her point with her pen, and she's got her facts in front of her. It's just hard to escape. It's a good lock-in.
Right now, as you sit here today, do you stand by your testimony and your accusations against Johnny Depp about abuse?
Of course, and I will to my dying day. I know what happened to me. I'm here as a survivor. I, to my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony.
I make a hay out of that. Till my dying day, I swear to God, on my mother's grave.
We call that moral high ground, by the way. That's actually, in an interrogation room, a red flag. On my mother's grave, as God is my witness, to my dying day. All those things make you go, hold on, why are you so emphatic about this? Now, this is wrapping up her whole story. So it probably is appropriate, if she's ever going to use that. And I would say, just based on my paying attention to Amber Heard, because she was not on my radar 6-8 weeks ago, before this whole chaotic thing we started doing. But I perceive drama as stranded intellectual capacity, meaning if a person is too smart for what they're doing for a living, or they're too smart for their situation, or too smart, they're going to find something. Humans are industrious creatures. they're going to find something to do with that stranded capacity. And often it results in drama because they do something silly, and that creates problems for them. I perceive her to be, somebody said she has histrionic personality disorder. I'm not psychologist. I don't diagnose people. I'm a technician. But she's certainly demonstrative in her behavior. And she's playing into that. She asks her in a soft way. She shakes her head no as she's doing it. She asks her in a soft way, do you stand by what you said? She doesn't accuse. That's a beautiful way to close out this whole thing, because she's now giving her the opportunity to say something softly and say, well, but she doesn't. She came there with a message to deliver. And that, Eric, is why I think we have to be cautious with all this edited stuff, because we don't know how much editorial control Amber Heard's people had over it. We don't know any of that. So we just have to guess.
There's no polite way to say it. The jury looked at the evidence you presented. They listened to your testimony, and they did not believe you. They thought you were lying.
How could, I'll put it this way, how could they?
So what, if you want to see contempt in someone's face, now, like I say, Savannah Guthrie could do that all the time, but that asymmetric expression, that single side of the mouth rising, and especially with that disapproval as she pulls her lips back, we associate that with contempt and disapproval. That message is pretty clear when you're talking to somebody and you do that, and her face is kind of alight. She's kind of amused at the same time. That's pretty powerful messaging to send to the person you're saying, hey, people thought you were lying, are you? I'd love to see this unedited from beginning to end so we could see where the pieces played out, because this sure feels like it came before the other stuff. And part of the reason I say that is because if you look at the side of her mouth, it's not up. But if you look at the sessions as she progresses in the video, or at least what it appears, that left side of Amber Heard's face is way up as she's sitting just talking. So tough to tell.
Like a progression.
Yep.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for helping us shed some light on this particular subject. And folks, once again, it doesn't matter what Greg thinks. It doesn't matter what I think. I want to know what you think. So please comment below and consider subscribing if you like this kind of content, so you'll see the next video when it comes out.